Move to this health issue. As we learn to live with COVID-19, the medical world is developing new methods of detecting the virus, making it quicker and easier to isolate outbreaks. New studies at the Centre for Respiratory Diseases and Meningitis are on the horizon, including projects on self-swabbing for COVID-19 and another series of antibody or seroprevalence tests. Let's find out more from Dr Jocelyn Moyes, an epidemiologist at the Centre for Respiratory Diseases and Meningitis. And the CRDM falls under the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. Doctor, thank you very much for your time this evening. So talk to me about these studies. Let's start with the one that involves self-swabbing. You need public participation. I can think of a few things worse than having to swab my own nose. But it seems to become, it seems fairly common practice in other parts of the world. So talk to me about this study first.
Thank you, Sally, and good evening. It's really quite interesting that we're looking for ways to expand our surveillance. And what has been used in a number of countries, including Germany and Australia, is a method of sending a test kit to somebody's home so that they can then conduct the swab themselves. So instead of the swab that goes all the way around to the back of your nose, that you would, the sort of swab that people have become quite conversant with COVID, this swab would just go into the outside part of your nose, fairly easy to do yourself. So we would send a driver out with that test kit. We would perform the swab, send the kit back with the driver who would drop it off at the laboratory, and you would get a test result within 24 hours. So we really are looking, I mean, we're setting this up primarily in anticipation of next year's flu season. But of course, it would have the added benefit of being able to test for other respiratory viruses and so other respiratory viruses, of course, including COVID.
Okay, so why do you need to do tests on it when noses in other countries have already been tested? People are doing it themselves anyway. Are you doing it to see if it works well in South Africa, or are you doing it because you actually want to get the results and have a look at what's happening?
So we really, yes, of course, we don't need to test the concept. Obviously, there would be a few logistics we'd like to run through in South Africa because we believe our setting is slightly different, for example, for Europe and Australia, where they actually use the postal system. People are, get the swab test kit in the post. So obviously, we want to run it in our setting just to check that we can actually run the logistics. But really, more importantly, we need information on how well our flu and COVID vaccines are working. And so by trying to make it easier for people to test and then getting a little bit of information from them, have you had a vaccine? When was your last dose of flu or COVID vaccine? It will help us to have better estimates on how vaccines, what we call vaccine effectiveness, which is how well the vaccines are working in the community and in the real world.
Well, now that I know that it doesn't involve shoving a swab right to the back of your throat, it actually seems like quite an easy test to do yourself. How could someone like me get involved? What do we do?
Okay, so I think you have shown the telephone numbers. We're partnering up with Epicenter, who have a very big field presence. So they are already doing phone, you can phone them, ask for a COVID test. If you have respiratory symptoms, they will then take over and deliver the sample for us, the sample test kit, and then collect it for us. So you can make use of those telephone numbers. We are in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, and in the Western Cape. We will also be connecting with a group of general practitioners. So it's quite possible that if you go to, if you phone your GP and say, I think I have COVID or I think I have flu, then you may well be offered it through that route as well. Right. So there are a number of ways. I think you
yes, we have.
So it'd be very nice if we could display Epicenter's telephone number. And so that's how we will do it. It should be really simple. You phone in, you get your test kit, answer some simple questions, you get your result, you have flu or COVID, please contact your doctor for referral, and that it should be that simple.
Talk to me, okay, that sounds great. I mean, talk to me now about the other test. You're also looking at seroprevalence, which my understanding is that is to test antibodies. we know that immunity is a bit of a moving target, that natural immunity from actually getting COVID or from having the vaccine does tend to wane. So what are these seroprevalence tests all about? What are you trying to find out? When do they kick off?
Okay, so I don't have all the details of that study, but I do know that we're going out into communities to collect blood samples, and we will test those samples for the presence of antibodies and other immune markers to get some idea of how many people in the communities, in a number of different communities, have immunity to the virus, and that really is natural immunity. That's not looking at vaccine immunity.
Oh, that sounds very interesting indeed. Thank you so much. And it's fantastic news to hear that soon we may be able to test ourselves without having that swab shoved right to the back of our throats. It really is great to hear about these advances. Thank you so much for your time this evening. That's Dr. Jocelyn Moyes, an epidemiologist at the Centre for Respiratory Diseases and Meningitis. That's the CRDM.